Hello everyone, my name is Marcus Linning, and today I'm going to be talking about appraising the influence of pre-recorded lectures on assessment and attainment, results of a pre-COVID lockdown study. So my name is Marcus Linning. I am a research student in ceramics at the Limerick School of Art and Design, part of LIT. This research is based on work that I have that comes from another post I hold, where I'm a professor of digital media education at the University of Winchester in the UK. And I research all sorts of things about how we use technology in education and the impact of technology upon education and other factors. So my research in this regard, I'm particularly interested on the impact of using recorded lectures, both on students. Does it help them learn as measured by their attainment in assessments? Does it impact their attendance? And does it change what they do in assessments? I'm also interested on the impact of producing this material on staff, how much extra work it does, what kind of extra skills we need to do this kind of thing. So I want to go back and do a little bit about the history of recording lectures. Well, we first start recording lectures in the 1960s when the technology becomes more available to us. There are three broad approaches in the recording of lectures. First off, we've got an approach which is used widely by the Open University and a number of other distance learning programs. And here, a recording is used instead of a person-to-person delivered lecture. So rather than having someone go into an auditorium and give a lecture, you make the materials available in advance. And sometimes those materials are broken into little bits, sometimes they're recorded, sometimes they're filmed in a documentary fashion. But the idea is it's not that kind of traditional lecture where you stand in front and pontificate in front of a group of people. The second tradition involves recording in addition to a lecture. So you have a lecture and you record it as live. And there's lots and lots of interesting technical issues are thrown up by this. For instance, we've known for about 100 years now, we've been making TV shows like this, that simply recording a live performance gives a very different experience for the audience from being in the audience of a live performance. So there's whole kind of things with the genre of television, the way in which television transforms us and so on. The third tradition is recorded in advance of delivery. So here you record a lecture in advance, but you also deliver it live later on. This is less popular and it involves more work for the lecturer. And it's this particular branch that I've been looking at. So having the lecture in advance should help students learn better, as they can focus on the content of the lecture rather than on making notes. So if they got the lecture in advance and they've watched it once, they go in for the second showing with the lecturer giving it, they've got a better understanding of the material. They can then go back over any bits they are unsure about. It's also been a bit of a preoccupation of mine in trying to make my teaching more accessible to students with learning differences such as dyslexia, and I'm also interested in facilitating international students. So putting lecture materials available in advance of things I thought would help these students. And there are further issues in that claimed by colleagues in that offering material in advance would mean students wouldn't turn up. Because when I was talking to colleagues, I record my lectures, they won't turn up, they won't come. And that should certainly be true if the lecture itself was available in advance. So the idea is if students don't turn up if they can get the material, well, let's do an experiment and see if it does. So out of these kind of ideas, I developed three hypotheses. Firstly, that offering a recorded lecture in advance would result in an improved mean score for the cohort than in previous years. H1B, that offering a recorded lecture in advance may result in certain subpopulations, such as international students, doing better. And I was trying to figure out how much they would do better, but just for the measurement purposes, I've opted for an optimistic 5%. So if my international students do 5% better, then my hypothesis is demonstrated. And then H2, that attendance would be lower for the cohort than in previous years. And finally, the lecturer, me, would notice an additional amount of work above the normal preparation. So the activity stems around a module I teach called Exploring Media Theory. So I teach in the Media and Communications program at the University of Winchester. We have 4 modules per semester. This one comes in the first semester of the second year, and it's the big theoretical module. It covers all the major theoretical aspects of media studies, and it's been taught since 2012. The course consists of 12 substantive lectures, each one about 50 minutes long, supported by a seminar. There's also extensive reading that the students do. The lecture is revisited each year, so I constantly update the lectures. I also put lots of formative work into the course. So the students have to work in teams and produce a seminar paper, and that's presented in video format. They can use animation or reportage or various things. So they have to, read some of the peer-reviewed work and present it in the seminars, and they get given a certain week they have to work with. There's one assessment point, and that's a summative essay of 2,500 words that's released to them in week 12. And then they've got about a month to do that. Each lecture is recorded in advance, and the lectures were available 24 hours prior to the formal delivery for the lecture. So the lectures would normally take place on a Tuesday afternoon. I would have the lecture recorded and available to the students on Monday afternoon. So I have 24 hours to look at the recording of it before coming in for the final thing. Each video involved using the then university system, which is something called Camtasia. And it was then uploaded to Camtasia and processed. And that could take anything up to an hour. Now, all our lectures had to have subtitles as well. So Camtasia would subtitle the work, and that's why it would take so long. I would then download the lecture, and then I would upload it to YouTube, and then I'd take a link from YouTube and put that onto the university virtual learning environment, which is called Canvas. So it's quite a tricky process to do this at the time. This is before COVID, so really the university wasn't really geared towards producing video lectures. So there are lots of issues with Camtasia. The first video took about 5 hours to make and do, and after that I got better, but the best was about 2 hours and a bit. However, several times the upload went wrong and the video had to be re-uploaded, and on 2 occasions I had to re-record. Also, there were numerous times when I was interrupted during the recording. And while some very primitive editing is possible in Camtasia, for the most part, it's not very good at editing. Sound quality tended to be very poor when I was making these videos. So the webcam I was using, for some reason or other, produced a lag between the image and the speech. The multimedia desk lent me a microphone, but it needed additional software to work on a PC in, and then they couldn't do this, and then suggested I record the sound separately and add it after, but that's a disaster. So Camtasia actually made the whole process a lot more tricky. A better method would be to use Premiere, the software, but the standard build that the university provided us with couldn't support Premiere because you needed a 64-bit operating system, and we could only have a 32 one at the university. They then suggested I use my laptop at home. All these issues, however, have now been solved because we're using MS Streams to do these things, and that works a lot better. So following the course, assignments were marked and a mean grade for the cohort calculated and compared with previous years. And then I was looking at subpopulations as well. I also calculated the attendance rates and compared them to previous years. So just to give you an overview of the kind of grades, what was happening. So over here we've got 13-14, we had 28 students that year. The mean grade was 56.95. And then over the years, you can see the grades staying pretty much about that 56, 57, 58 mark, really. 2019-20, it was 57.95. So it wasn't substantively different. There were many years in which the mean grade was above and a number of years where the mean grade was below. So it didn't actually affect. There was no noticeable change in the mean grade. So H1 is not found. Then I looked at the subpopulation of non-native speakers of English. So the program recruits a few students each year from the People's Republic of China, from Taiwan, a number of other Southeast Asian nations, but also from Norway. So we have a number of students whose mother tongue is not English. And again, so their mean grade is slightly different. So if the mean grade for a whole cohort was 56.95 in 2013-14, it was 49.35 for non-native speakers of English. And as you can see, the grades pretty much stay around that point. However, in the year in question, in 1920, the grade jumps up to 60%. It's 9 to 10 points better than it had been in previous years. So international students were doing a lot better when they were able to access the recorded lectures. So the whole court does better as a result of the videos, but the subpopulation of international students do a lot better. But what that means is that the native speakers of English are actually doing worse than before. They're doing worse when they've got the videos. The mean is kept high by the overperformance of the international non-native students. So what I did, I went back and I revisited the work from the previous years and my mocking on the previous years to try and find any explanation, to try and find any pattern. So I was going through these ones, I had a look at them and looking for any issue or pattern of submitted work that could possibly be a reason for the poor performance of domestic students in the experimental year of 1920. So what I did a frequency distribution. I'm not going to go into this in detail, but you can see there the various marks there. One thing that does change a bit is the number of 2 1s drops quite strongly in 2000 and 1920, and the number of thirds increases in 1920. And then we've got a pictogram, sorry, a histogram of the various scores. So reading through the comments, my comments on the work on the previous years and on all the tutors' comments on this thing, one thing that really leapt out is that for 1920 was a number of times I was saying that an essay simply seemed to be a rehash of the lecture and not a proper answer to the question. So there were many more students who were regurgitating the lecture than in previous years. And I found 12 incidents of this. Each was scored at the low end of a third as it didn't really answer the question. Although some who did this, but the number, there were always some who did this, but the number greatly increased when I provided a recording of it. So when they could actually access a recording, they just regurgitated it. In terms of attendance, there was no major difference. The students stayed, still came to the lectures. It was 74% this year, 72% the previous year, 73%. So this is the number of students who attended 80% or more of the lecture. In terms of the pros and cons, in terms of the cons, pretty much tripled the amount of work that I would have to do for the module. Lots of headaches with Camtasia, and some of the videos are never really watched. One of the videos I made, even though there was 60 odd students, only had 16 views. In terms of the pros, well, I learned lots about making videos. Students who do not make the lecture for sickness or other reasons, who would previously would have had to have a long tutorial with them explaining things, could now go and watch the wedding video. And some of the videos have become very popular. One of these videos now has several hundred hits on YouTube. So to conclude, it made a difference in the marks, but not in the way expected. It was mean that less engaged home students did worse because of it, whereas my international students did better. Despite expectations, attendance wasn't affected. You can record the lecture, the students will still come to the lecture. There was lots more work for the lecturer, however. In module feedback, however, the videos were very highly praised and the students loved them. They were very popular and were mentioned extensively. One of the problems, though, is it's raised expectations. And now the other modules I was teaching, the students were expecting me to make videos for them. So this research was conducted before COVID. It started in September 2019, and the course was finishing in December 2019, and then COVID hit us in January 2020, if I remember rightly. So I just about squeezed it in before that. After that, I was actually doing it for real. But I hope you found that interesting. I'll be very interested if you've got any questions about it. So thank you very much.